Welcome back to ScreenRant! With the MCU closing the chapter on Phase 3 with Avengers Endgame and Spider-Man Far From Home, fans are excited for the future. But who will be the next big bad in the Marvel Universe for Phase 4? Well, that's what we're going to look at today. We'll look at the cosmic villains and races that may be a thorn in the side of the MCU's heroes in future films. So let's get cracking. We start off our list with one of the most anticipated characters to make a mark in the MCU. Galactus is the devourer of worlds. We've seen Galactus before on the big screen in the 2007 film Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, although only as an unimpressive space cloud. A great way to introduce the Fantastic Four into the MCU would be the obstacle of stopping Galactus from consuming Earth. But only in his giant purple outfit. No more clouds, please. When Galactus was destroyed in the comics, the cosmic entity Abraxas was freed. Abraxas is the embodiment of destruction. Once he was free from his prison, he wreaked havoc across the multiverse looking for revenge against other versions of Galactus for his imprisonment. Abraxas is another cosmic villain that required the combined forces of eternity, a resurrected Galactus, the Fantastic Four, and the children of Reed and Susan Richards to defeat him. The Celestials are a mysterious and highly powered race. While the MCU referenced that Star-Lord's father Ego was a Celestial, we'll be looking at the comic version of the race. The Celestials often treat the universe as a science experiment. Once the Celestials have done their experiment, they watch the planet for 50 years. If the manipulated race fails by whatever they deem a failure to be, then the planet is destroyed. Fun group, but a big potential problem for the MCU to tackle. Inspired by the X-Men villain Mr. Sinister, Herbert Wyndham grew obsessed with evolution. Due to some cosmic shenanigans, he gained powers and a new identity, the High Evolutionary. The High Evolutionary would be a great character to introduce the mutants into the MCU. Perhaps behind the scenes, he's been working on manipulating human genetic code, which leads to the birth of the mutant population. That'd be pretty revolutionary. Now that Asgard is gone, time is ripe for the Serpent to strike. Odin's brother, Kol Borson, ruled Asgard for a time, but he wanted to spread fear throughout the realms. Odin and his other brothers managed to remove Kol from power. Odin then locked him away under the ocean on Earth. Eventually, Kol was released and laid siege to Earth. Thor had to step up and face his uncle. Thor sadly perished in the battle, but did defeat Kol in the process. With MCU Thor away from New Asgard and off in space, Kol could attack New Asgard and draw his nephew and hero chums in for a fear-ridden battle. Blastaar is one of our two Negative Zone villains on the list. In the comics, Blastaar is an occasional ruler of the Negative Zone, but full-time villain to the Marvel Universe. He's obsessed with gaining more and more dominance through force. Blastaar has a boatload of powers. They range from superhuman strength to superhuman speed. Blastaar is a regular fixture to the Fantastic Four villain pantheon. He's also notoriously tricky to defeat. The Phalanx are a techno-organic alien race. They can infect organic life forms into their numbers. One way to introduce the Phalanx into the MCU is using the comic story Annihilation Conquest. During this story arc, the Phalanx were ruled over by Ultron. Remember him?
How can you possibly hope to stop me?
The Phalanx spread across the Kree Empire. Anyone they touched, they assimilated under their control. With Ultron seemingly defeated in the film Age of Ultron, one way for him to return is to bring in the Phalanx. This would turn Ultron, who's already a big problem, into a cosmic-level threat. Kang the Conqueror has been in the Marvel Universe for a long time.
I am Kang.
Kang is from the 31st century. He uses his knowledge and technology to go back in time and conquer Earth in different points in time. The Avengers have beaten him back time and time again. But Kang always regroups and returns. Kang in the MCU would bring up an interesting dilemma for the Avengers and how to defeat him. Because Endgame spoiler, they no longer have Tony Stark to use his technology-building skills to batter Kang back to the 31st century. Shuma-Gorath goes by so many other names. Some of those names include the Void Made Flesh, the Many-Angled One, and God Who Sleeps. Okay, the last one doesn't sound too scary. Yet Shuma-Gorath is not a being to be taken lightly. It doesn't seem too powerful when looking at it. Yet Shuma-Gorath has required multiple legendary sorcerers to banish it from the main Marvel Universe. In the MCU, Doctor Strange would have to lead a group of magic users in destroying this beast. Gore is one of the most recent Marvel comic introductions on this list. Known as Gore the God Butcher, he was brought to life in 2013. His full name should give you a pretty good idea of what Gore stands for. Before his god-slaying days, Gore was going through a horrendous time as his family slowly perished around him. He prayed for help from the gods, but received none. This gave Gore the push to find revenge against the deities. He obliterated any god he found. Eventually, Gore grabbed Thor's attention. Thor needed a young and old version of himself, Gore's own son, and energy from the remaining gods to beat Gore. It would be a mammoth task for the MCU characters to face Gore, but one that would be very, very interesting. Terrax was one of the heralds of Galactus. Like the Silver Surfer before him, Terrax would scout out planets for his master to consume. He found more worlds for Galactus than any other herald. Terrax has been depicted in the comics as cruel and with little morality. A battle in the cinema between the morals of the Silver Surfer and the immoral Terrax would be an exciting possibility. Looking like something out of Mass Effect, the Builders are an alien species to be reckoned with. They conquered every planet they came across as they journeyed towards Earth. Considering they're thought of as one of the Marvel Universe's oldest races, they've had plenty of time to practice their combat skills. On top of that, they also have advanced technology. It took the combined might of the Avengers and the armies of many alien races to turn the tide of battle. In Marvel Comics, Cyttorak is a powerful entity that's been described as both a god and a demon. X-Men fans might recognize the name, as Cyttorak is responsible for providing the power of the Juggernaut.
Juggernaut!
Cyttorak, who lives in the Crimson Cosmos, will provide an avatar with the Juggernaut powers and instruct the avatar to create destruction in its name. He uses an avatar on Earth in order to prove he is more powerful than other entities. They use the Earth as a playground for their quest to dominate. With Cyttorak and Juggernaut working together, they could easily dominate the MCU until the heroes can, hopefully, group together and fight back.
I'm gonna rip you in half now.
Reality warping is arguably the strongest power to have. Imagine a villain being able to turn the world upside down, literally against the MCU. Well, that's exactly what Owen Reese can bring to the villain table. Reese goes by the unimaginative name, the Molecule Man. But don't let that name fool you. Reese isn't to be overlooked. The Molecule Man is also known as being emotionally unstable, which makes him an unpredictable opponent. Owen Reese was originally introduced as a villain for the Fantastic Four. If the MCU wanted to shake things up and have the Fantastic Four face off against a different villain, they could do a lot worse than the Molecule Man. Now that Thanos has kicked the dusty bucket, his son could look for revenge against the MCU heroes. Thane is more emotional than Thanos, but he is just as strong as his father. Seeking to avenge his father, Thane could lay waste to the MCU. Amatsu Mikaboshi is Marvel's Japanese god of evil, chaos, and the stars. If it looks and sounds like a villain, it's probably a villain, which is definitely the case for Mikaboshi. He has a pocket full of powers. Shape-shifting, energy and image projection, and creating shadow copies are just some of the powers this god has. Mikaboshi could open up the prospect for the gods of Olympus to be brought into the fold as well. Thor and Hercules teaming up in the MCU? Sign us up! Most Marvel comic fans know of the brothers Scott and Alex Summers, but how about the Omega-level mutant Gabriel Summers? Well, Gabriel is far more powerful than his brothers. He's also far more mentally unstable than his brothers. With the X-Men primed to be added into the MCU now, having three brothers go against each other would be a good way to start. The Beyonder has powers that rivals most of Marvel's gods. He can manipulate reality and can change the universe with a mere thought.
And I will rip you in two.
The Beyonder's powers may be too much for the MCU to handle as well. However, the Beyonder can be tricked, as Doctor Doom did so to steal his powers for a time in Secret Wars. The MCU's heroes would need to do something similar to stop the Beyonder acting out his desires. Now we arrive at the usual ruler of the negative zone, Annihilus. This bug-like alien uses something called the Cosmic Control Rod as the source for most of his powers. This cosmic device can provide powers such as telepathy, telekinesis, and matter manipulation. Annihilus was also responsible for one of the most destructive cosmic events in Marvel Comics, Annihilation. He used a vast collection of bug-esque aliens called the Annihilation Wave to swarm across the galaxy and destroy all in their path. If the MCU were to replicate the Annihilation event, that would be a series of epic and dramatic films. The upcoming Dark Phoenix film will be the second time the Phoenix Force has graced our cinemas. Yet with Disney purchasing the film rights to Fox's Marvel characters, the possibility of the Phoenix arriving in the MCU is now high. Once the X-Men are introduced, one possible way to bring in the Phoenix Force is to follow the comic events of Avengers vs. X-Men. In this story, the Phoenix Force is approaching Earth to find a vessel. However, thanks to the Avengers, it is split into 5 pieces and finds 5 mutants to inhabit. This grants them godlike power to reshape the world as they like, which of course leads to them being corrupted. The Phoenix Force is nice like that. Mephisto is one of many Marvel motifs for the devil. He's tricky, manipulative, and powerful. Mephisto is energized by all evil on Earth. Considering the large volume of supervillains, unsurprisingly, this makes Mephisto a very dangerous demon. Mephisto's introduction to the MCU would bring a rich tapestry of Marvel's often neglected supernatural side. Get weaving, Marvel! As the multiverse was being destroyed in 2015's Secret Wars, Doom created a patchwork planet, in where he was Emperor Doom. His newfound power was insane. He easily defeated a Phoenix-powered Cyclops. He even obliterated Thanos without so much as breaking a sweat. We would need standard Victor Von Doom to firstly be introduced into the MCU. Then Doom can level up and bend reality to his will. Often a villain will have good intentions, but will go about their plan in the worst way. Michael Korvac is one such villain. Korvac was a cyborg from the future. He used his machine side to scan and collect power from the Grandmaster and later Galactus, the latter of which imbued Korvac with the power cosmic. He traveled back to the main Marvel's universe present day. Korvac then began to try and manipulate the universe into becoming a utopia. Luckily, Korvac saw the error of his ways eventually, but it took a vast amount of heroes to gain any form of upper hand against this cosmic villain. Whilst the Skrulls have already been introduced into the MCU thanks to Captain Marvel, it's one comic event in particular we'll be looking at. The Secret Invasion event ran from 2008 to 2009. Thanks to the Illuminati group being captured and experimented on, the Skrulls were able to replicate different powers. As such, they could create more Super Skrulls. The Skrulls would then kidnap several heroes and replace them with one of their own. When the time was right, the Skrulls would enact their plan to take over the Earth. The Secret Invasion would add a lot of mystery as fans scrambled to figure out who's a Skrull. Adam Warlock has been teased in 2 Guardians of the Galaxy films to date.
Adam.
It's about time the real deal burst out of his cocoon into the MCU. Warlock isn't usually depicted as a villain. However, an aspect of him is. Originally, a future version of Adam Warlock would become the villain called Magus. This version of Magus was on a mission to eliminate impure life forms in the galaxy. He's an incredibly powerful villain that would be very difficult for the MCU heroes to defeat. Once Adam Warlock is strolled into the MCU, then the Magus will become a likely possibility to terrorize the heroes in Phase 4. And that's our cosmically powered list. Which of these characters are you hoping will be in the MCU? Did we miss any out? Pop down to the comment section below and put in your thoughts. Thanks for joining us today. And remember to subscribe to ScreenRant to keep up to date on our videos. We'll see you next time.